Imagine this. Your conference isn't just a 3-day event. It's a year's worth of content waiting to be captured. Most event organizers don't realize they're surrounded by their biggest content opportunity because they're focused on getting through the event instead of preserving it. At E3 Webcasting, we transform your conference into a content engine by capturing keynote presentations, breakout sessions, attendee reactions, sponsor stories, and even highlights, while everything else is already happening. Notice what happens when your event lives beyond closing day. Your community stays engaged, your sponsors receive months of additional exposure, and your content continues delivering value long after everyone has gone home. Because the cameras, speakers, audience, and energy are already there, creating a library of on-demand content is far more efficient than trying to recreate that value later. A 365-day resource for your members, sponsors, and future attendees. Download our guide to learn how to transform your next event into a year-round content engine. Welcome, Brian. I'm super excited to have you on the podcast today. You've been driving the development and direction of events for a while now. Can you tell the listeners a little bit about your background?
Sure. So I started in media just under 10 years ago at the Wall Street Journal, focused primarily first on the consumer vertical and then moved over to finance, was more on the sales, assisting and enabling side. Moved over to Morning Brew a few years after that, sort of wanting to get my toe more into like the startup ecosystem. I think at the time not realizing that Morning Brew had already been purchased by Axel Springer, so not necessarily in the startup phase, but got to learn a lot, got a lot more experience. I worked with our B2B partners across HR, retail. At there, we had just been coming out of COVID. And so we had started to, we did two, main B2B summits, did a marketing summit and we did an HR summit. So that was sort of my first like summit conference launch. And then also we did like a summer series down on Wall Street for our B2B verticals, smaller like 100-person events. So that was really my first experience. I was on the ad sales side, so selling sponsorship for those events and just seeing like a 0-1 event get started. About 2.5 years after that, I had jumped over to a real startup, Archaea Media Group, which was at the time just Payload, which is a space media company. And then we had expanded into, it was a lot of fun. Expanded into defense and nuclear. And there we had launched several different shows from 0-1. We did an investor summit. We did a Lunar and Mars conference. A bunch of happy hours, conference events. So really ran the gambit of events there. And again, because we're such a small team, had really direct part in helping build those up. And then now at Kerry, which is our new company, we're a holding company of B2B media assets, and specifically working with creators and small media companies to do just what I said, right? Take your community and niche media and build scalable products. Today, that really is taking the form of events and conferences because that's such a unique skill that you really either have to hire a team for or just sort of dive in and take a big risk with your wallet, right? So we're sort of helping people bridge that gap. Eventually, it'll go into paid research and other different products. So yeah, that's my background and sort of where we are today.
I'm not really sure how I heard of you, but I think it was Kerri, and I just love that business model. And seeing what you guys have done with it is amazing. Tell us, it's got 3 events currently, right?
So right now we have one event we're doing. We launched our first. So we had purchased a stake in a media company called Hardware FYI. It's a media company focused on hardware engineering, sort of for engineers by engineers. Benji, who writes the newsletter, he is the he's the writer, content creator. He built this really strong community of just about 20,000 hardware engineers, and so we sort of partnered with him to take that from just like the newsletter. He had done like a happy hour before, and then we launched a conference called Kinetic, which is our first conference that happened in May. 325 people, 15 booths, 27 sponsors.
Wow.
So really like went for it and, kept it small and intimate. I think that
Hmm.
is the number one thing of starting a new show, a new event,
Mm.
is making sure the room is correct, right? It starts with the content, and then downstream of that are the people in the room. Everything else, ticket sales, sponsorship, that all follows downstream of those two things, I feel, the network and the content. And then now we have our second show coming up in October called the Ironclad Maritime Summit. So that's separate from Hardware, FYI. We're
Okay.
working with Hampton Roads Alliance and the Navy League to put that on. That's going to be a maritime defense show,
Mm.
and leveraging those networks. I don't want to speak to who's confirmed yet because it's still not public information, but got some really
Right.
great speakers and people on the content side, from the Navy and from private industry. And so, sort of following that same playbook, right? Like those folks had a really deep network, really great community. Everybody that they're connected with on the private sector wants to be in front of the folks on the Navy and wants to be in the room with them.
Hmm.
But nobody at the association or Navy League sort of had that skill set to launch an event and make sure it's
Okay.
successful and, more importantly, profitable, right? Like nobody has the money to be losing hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Right.
um, so that's where we came in and sort of brought our expertise and helped them launch that and hopefully scale it over the next couple of years.
That's super cool. You're, I think on LinkedIn, you mentioned that you have some fun software running all this. Can you share a little bit about that or?
Sure. Yeah. So we built a software platform called Savant, and so that is sort of an end to end. One of the beautiful things I think today, starting from scratch, is that we had no tech debt. We didn't have a really big
Oh,
CRM,
yeah.
with a huge database, right? We weren't like deep into the Cvent products or any of the other software that sort of ingratiates the
Mm.
industry. Rightfully so. For years was great software. But now you have, the AI side of things, and you have agents and all this new technology that's just going to take a while, frankly, to get implemented. And so we're able to do it today, right? We have Kerri, who's not only the name of our company, but also our agent. She takes care of operations. She does cold outreach for sales. She's
Wow.
booking newsletter inventory. She helped me plan the booth room, or the booth space in the
Uh-huh.
room. Um, she's doing everything besides basically content, which I think is still strongly should sit in the human side. And then also
Yeah.
on the sales side, right? It's still a relationship game. You still got to show up on video or in person and sell. And so,
Hmm.
our ideal goal is that, you know, Benji, who's writing the newsletter now, he can just write his content and everything else downstream of that is taken care of on the back end. And then same thing for me on the sales side and operations side. I can just go on a video call, go on a sales call, meet somebody in person, and then everything else, the follow up, the package creation, the booking in the CRM, all of that is taken care of really without my input. So still early. A lot of this stuff is still being hacked together. We
Hmm.
started October, so it's certainly a work in progress, but we've seen some really great results. And like that first event with Kinetic, we actually really just did it with Benji and I, and my business partner Ari helped out as well. But like three people running a 325 person show with 25 sponsors, I think would
Wow.
seem ridiculous in the past, but now
Yeah.
it's certainly, a reality. And we got like an 80% satisfaction score from our sponsors and attendees. So,
That's huge.
worked out, worked out year one at least.
Sponsors are rarely happy.
They are really happy, although you can get them in a good mood when you launch a first show and get them excited to be involved.
Yes.
So I am taking that with a grain of salt too. That I think the
Mm.
expectations will probably be a bit higher next year.
That's killer. That is really amazing. Um, wow. So, I l I love that your background is media. Um, just as a segue into kind of a different category, if you had to, share a favorite event that you've attended, what would it be?
A favorite event I've attended. Well, I'll give you two answers.
Okay.
I'll give you the favorite event I've planned, and not because it was the smoothest, greatest event that's ever happened. It was actually the opposite. So last year we had, when I was still at Payload and Archaea Media, on
Uh-huh.
the space product side, we were launching a Lunar and Mars Summit. Um, and, right before we decided to launch the event, Jared Isaacman, who if people don't know, he's now the NASA administrator. He was at the time proposed to be the NASA administrator, like really great background in the private sector. Elon Musk and Donald Trump were, like two peas in a pod.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was sort of looking great. And then pretty much the moment we launched it, um, Elon and Trump broke up. Trump had put a travel ban on all government employees, so it was
Oh
like
yeah.
very unclear if anybody was going to be able to travel to the conference from the government
Mm.
side. Which, like,
Yeah, was most of
Lunar
it.
and
Yeah.
Mars is NASA right now. Like there's not really another body that's interested from the government side yet. And Jared Isaacman had at the time been like, kicked out sort of being the NASA administrator. So it was like this perfect
Whoa.
storm of everything going poorly. And I think the event ended up being, as good as we were going to make it be. It wasn't
Uh-huh.
a failure by any means. The team there is still growing it this year. They're doing it again. So still good momentum. But yeah, that was basically, you couldn't ask for a better or a worse pie to be served, right? As you're about to
Right.
launch and as many headwinds as humanly possible coming at you. The best event I attended, I have to say that I really, for all that it's scaled back, I'm sure I've never seen it at its peak, but like, your
Mm.
South by Southwest, I still think um, these sort of disjointed, decentralized conferences where you have a
Mm-hmm.
different activations. And sure, maybe the conference itself's content is not fantastic, but you have like, you're going to the Porsche house, and then you're going to
Yes.
Axios, and then you're going here. And I think that, you really see, and I've never been to con, but like, same idea,
Mm.
right? Like, I think you really see brand shine. And when there's so much firepower going into one conference, everybody is forced to sort of bring their A game.
Right. Step
Um,
up.
yeah, exactly. I really enjoy those types of events.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's always fun to see the A game.
Yeah.
Um, Very cool. Well, I don't want to take too much of your time, but and I need to get going for another engagement, but do you have any closing comments for the listeners?
I think that, in the age of AI, I would say, content and network, as I mentioned in the beginning, is everything. I think
Yep.
stop focusing on massive growth and start focusing on who's in the room.
Mm-hmm.
I think AI and software in general is going to make it as easy as possible to engage with almost every single person in the room, whether
Mm.
sponsor or attendee. And I think leverage that, because people want to feel seen and they want to feel like the conference is for them. That's how they're going to come back and repeat. And so I think if you're building an event, you really want to think about, people talk about audience engagement, they talk about sponsor engagement, but like there's really no excuse now to not deliver a great experience for everybody attending.
Wow, that is a great statement. I love the part about everyone wants to be seen. How do you implement that at an event? I mean, because
Um,
literally that's a core need that we all have. And yeah, that is really cool.
Yeah, I think, it can be as simple as like having a chat bot that is like there to help guide people. I think I've seen I haven't implemented it myself because I haven't launched an event scale to this, but like
Hmm.
I've seen people go as far as to like having a huge conference and like building a like manifest for a specific person saying, hey, you're, VP of X at Y company. Here are the 8 tracks that you should be, here are the 8 tracks that you should
Mm.
be attending. Here are specific speakers you're going to want to hear from. Here are sponsors who are selling a product relevant to you that you should see before you leave. Here's your potential buyer. whatever whenever you're at the conference tour, I think that that's something that you're looking at and saying, okay, how do I make a
Yeah.
10,000 person room
Yeah.
feel like, okay, somebody actually cares about me, and it's not like, oh, I'm spending my $3,000 ticket, and it's just like I'm throwing a sort of mass of nonsense, and I'm just spending my time trying to do a couple of meetings, and then I'm leaving.
It's almost like a personal concierge for each attendee.
It's
That's a really
possible.
fun idea.
Yeah, it's definitely possible.